Vernomatic Productions.
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold. We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC, a proud member of the Pantheon podcast team.
It's getting nice and heavy.
Now, welcome our hosts, John the Vernomatic Verno, and direct from New Jersey, Metal Walt.
Good evening, everybody. As always, Thursday nights, new content drops. Tonight's episode, we welcome Don Jamieson onto the show. Now, Don, besides being a kick-ass comedian, he's rock and roll metal royalty. He's been on the show, That Metal Show with Eddie Trunk and Jim Florentine. They just relaunched That Rock show up on YouTube. Well, Don's here tonight. He's going to join me and Metal Walt and Mark Washo from Worldwide Metal Music. We're going to get a roundtable discussion, and we're going to discuss the topic tonight of, are bands brands? If they are, can they continue with no original members? And what's going on out there with these bands that are calling themselves the full lineup, but don't have like barely any original members? It's a hot topic. We all have our takes. I have strong opinions on it. Metal Walt has opinions, and we're going to see what Don Jamieson has to say about this. So that's coming up in just a second. But first, I just want to remind you to get up to our website, metalmayhemroc.com. Sign up for our mailing list. Now, this is a way for us to stay in touch with you about all this stuff that's going on up here. Weekly episodes, reminders for our Monday night radio show. Our YouTube channel's blowing up. I'm putting videos up there all the time. So if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get updates on whenever we have new stuff. While you're there, download some past shows, rate and review, and subscribe to all this. That really does help things. Last week, we had Brian Diamond. Now, Brian was the content producer from MTV during the 80s. He had tons of cool stories, stuff about the US Festival, stuff about Thin Lizzy in the studio at MTV, Ozzy all hammered, Kiss when they took their makeup off. So check that one out. We had Bobby Blitz from Overkill a few weeks earlier talking about the new album. Let's see what else. We had History of Metal, Ian O'Rourke and Metal Walt and myself, our continuing series on the history of metal. Gil Moore of Triumph was at the beginning of the summer. So there's tons of killer content. Again, get up to metalmayhemroc.com and check all this out. All right, that's about it. Let's get into this. Rock N Roll Detention with Don Jamieson. I'm the Vernomatic. This is Metal Mayhem ROC. So here we are, middle of summer 2023, and another episode of Rock N Roll Detention. I'm the Vernomatic. I'm joined by Metal Walt, Metal Mark Washo, and our guest today is that rock and roll comedian, Don Jamieson. Don, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC.
Cool. Thanks for having me, guys. Look at, we're all professional with our backgrounds and everything. Very sexy we are.
Yeah, we are sexy. So what we're doing today, once a month, we get fellow podcasters, metalheads, more importantly, on here just to shoot the shit about stuff that we think about around a campfire. Metal Walt and I were always thinking, and I saw you at Rockin' Pod. Walt saw you down at the Tramp show. You and Mark go way back. So I'm going to send it over to Walt, but what we're going to talk about today is basically, when do bands cross the line with not original members, when they turn into a brand? Can they be a brand? And is there any longevity on there? So Walt always starts with a cool icebreaker. Walt, what do you got?
So, guys, I got the magic question. We're going to talk about a lot of our heroes and our bands. And does it feel right that there's only one original member? Is it a brand? Is it a band? Who's in there? We all have a million examples, but I want you guys to think about this. The Wiggles, right? The Wiggles announced their 2023 fall tour. Don, they're playing up at the Wellmont in Montclair. Listen, if Anthony can remain the only original member of the Wiggles, so can our bands. But what I think the Wiggles have done, look at this. They have 2 yellow people, 2 red people, 2 purple people. Can you imagine if there was like 2 Anguses and AC/DC, or you swap out a Brian Johnson and you bring like a Bon Scott guy in? So if the Wiggles can do it, so can our bands. That's my point.
I was the last time I was at Wellmont, I saw Alter Bridge and Wolfie Van Halen, but this show would rival that for sure, no doubt about it.
I think, all kidding aside, though, I think it's kind of funny that we make joke about our bands and we debate them to death as to whether it feels natural or not. This guy, Anthony in the Wiggles with the Blue, he's been around that band since 1991. He's probably a multi-billionaire. He don't care who's in there. Sounds a lot like Gene and Paul, right?
Well, we know that's coming. You know, as soon as the 50th anniversary of the first Kiss album tour happens, next in 2024, then they will all replace one another with totally different people, and who knows? Maybe in every city there'll be a version of Kiss.
You know, Mark and I have discussed this, and we're just going to jump ahead. For the longest time, I disagreed with him with Mark's crusade that a band can become a brand. Don, what's your take? Would you go see Kiss as replacement Kisses? What's your take on all of this? Because it's deep.
Oh yeah, wow, it is deep. Well, I'll start out with the way it is, and then I'll tell you what I think. So the way it is now is, yes, bands are now brands, and there's no better example of that right at this very moment in history than Pantera. You know, Dime and Vinny, and of course, on the day today that we're recording this is 5 years gone for Vinnie Paul. Mm-hmm. Rest in peace. Miss you and Dime all the time, and my liver doesn't, but I miss you guys as bros and incredible musicians. But I mean, this just shows you, you know, when you lose 2 crucial members to a band, and you go out. Certainly Zach and Charlie those were the guys if you're going to do it. But I think if you took a poll, especially of old school fans like we are, 95% of them at least would say, yeah, I wish they would have called it the Ultimate Pantera Tribute or Pantera 2.0. As you know, Eddie Trunk suggested. I like that one. It's simple. Even just a little, I know it seems weird, but just a little thing, you know, in small letters above the Pantera logo. But at the end of the day, that Pantera logo, you know, on every ad mat, on every festival, that's what drives it. And so that's exactly what's happened is bands are now brands. If you have the logo, you know, there's 19 LA Guns all suing each other, you know, to use the logo. And that's because it's important. You know, it drives all your money up if you can send that to the promoter. LA Guns is performing here, whether it's one original members, no original members, it doesn't matter. Me personally, I don't draw a line anywhere. I look at it case by case because I hold some bands in higher esteem than others. You know, I resisted seeing Sabbath, you know, on the farewell tour because Bill wasn't there. You know, now I did end up seeing it in the coolest of ways, but you know what I mean? Like Black Sabbath, I hold at a different level than maybe some other bands that for me, like, oh, there's only one original guy. Well, I still like them because they're still bringing the spirit of it and all that. But so I don't have a set line. It's on a band by band cases, but particularly with Pantera, I wish they would have added something.
Don, what's your opinion on Autograph, right? Autograph there's no Steve Lynch, there's no Steve Plunkett, and there's no Randy Rand, yet Jimmy Bell of the House of Lords takes the band forward. I mean, you're going to see them, right?
I have seen them. I saw them in Key West back in January at the festival down there, and I saw, you know, Simon Daniels, who sings for him now. I saw him on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and I love Simon. Simon's got a killer voice. If people, same with Quiet Riot, if people will pay to see it and you're carrying on the spirit of the band, there's no reason for them to not do it. I mean, Autograph has 0 original members. Now Quiet Riot, of course, Rudy's back, so that helps. But again, it's a case by case basis. I was never a huge Autograph fan from back in the day. I do like a bunch of their tunes, but people still coming out and seeing them. And again, boom, Autograph logo on your festival website page, and people go, oh, Autograph, turn up the radio, Blondes in Black Cars or whatever that song was. They know that's what they know. That's what they come to hear. And if it sounds good, they're happy.
What's your take, Mark?
I think maybe the key topic would be, what's the product itself, right? And I think maybe the reason Pantera is working, and I know a lot of people did say they should call it Pantera Tribute or Pantera something else, but obviously with Phil Anselmo there, when you see the product and you hear the music and it looks like Pantera and it feels like Pantera, so to me it's like, okay, it has the essence. Now, I know another band that was on the list is Skid Row, not Sebastian Bach on his solo stuff. That one's not feeling as much like Skid Row to me, or at least the Skid Row that I personally remember. So therefore, I don't know if I'm as apt to kind of follow what they're doing or go to their shows. So I know it's there's nothing. This is definitely the gray area of things. It's not obviously cut and dry or black and white, but I do think a lot of it does come down to somewhat of the product itself, right? If it even with Judas Priest, we're down to basically, well, even technically, Scott Travis is not an original member, but I guess you could say, oh, well, Ian Hill is. So we're down to 2, maybe 3, but.
Well, no, you're down. Sorry, let me just jump in. Technically, you're down to
one.
Rob?
Yeah. Oh, not even Rob.
No, Ian
Hill's the original.
Yeah. But to me, Richie, he breathed life in that band when they were probably going to call it a day, especially after, Glenn's health issues. So, but to me, Richie was a breath of fresh air and keeping it going. So this is a tough one. This is a tough. I think it comes down to the product. I think it comes down to the product.
And that's right, Mark. And the product, and there's that fine line. Who's writing the product? Skid Row, it's always been Rachel. It's always been Snake. You still got that original core. Now the Pantera thing, they're just playing concerts. It would be a different ballgame if they're releasing material saying it's Pantera. Now that's crossing a line that you can't cross. But it always goes back to those bands, and I make this comparison, Don, I don't know what your take is, but I have a problem with this Todd La Torre Queensryche. And because that core that wrote that vintage Queensryche was so strong, Degarmo, Jeff Tate, Rockenfield, who was a percussionist, that when Tate left the band, they did the Judas Priest route and got a sound-alike guy, and they keep pumping out Queensryche albums every 2 years. So, when does it cross the line of integrity of the writing core? What's your take on that, Donnie?
Well, yeah, that's another element to it, right? Of course, Rachel and Snake, wrote the big hits in Skid Row, and so they have the right to go out and do it. And obviously, Sebastian put some unbelievable vocals on top of it. And he's gone out and played those songs, his whole solo career. In fact, they were both out around the same. I think they overlapped doing the 30th anniversary of Slave to the Grind. So you had to pick and choose, like, who do you want to see? I don't. It's a case by case basis. In general, I like to hear the original singer, but it doesn't matter to me. I like Todd in Queensryche. In fact, I think they'll get to a point, other than maybe a handful of songs, they could just do their catalog with Todd, after maybe another album or two. So they're building their own thing with him, and it sounds like, classic Queensryche. And but I also love, Jeff can still sing at a high level. So yeah, that's the tricky thing. I kind of always lead towards the original voice. Like when Rat had Karabi in it, I love Karabi, but I would have rather seen Piercy solo because I want to hear Steven sing those songs. So it kind of depends. I think it's not really that important to people who go to these, who wrote the songs, as long as they sound good.
I think like with the band like Queensryche, and I'll use another example, Accept. It's the evolution of the lineup, right? In like, I disagree with Verno on this, and he and I have a lot of debates on this on the Queensryche, because I do think it's Queensryche, right? You had 3/5 of the original members. Yeah, Rockenfield's out and all that kind of stuff. But now you bring in Latour, and the writing goes over to him and Wilton versus DeGarmo. But it's the evolution of the band where now the identity of the band, or maybe even the brand, it's Wilton and Latour and Jackson, for Accept, right? Okay. Nobody thinks about Accept anymore as, oh, well, Udo's not in the band anymore. No, it's like, you got Wolf Hoffman out there. He's representing Accept, but Tornillo is like, he's not like a 1B guy. He's not a paid player. He's like right up there with Wolf, and they are the identity of Accept in 2023. And they've put 5 albums. They've been around 10 years or more. You can't say that is not like what carrying a band forward should be.
By the way, it's funny you said Tornillo and then Todd Latour. I saw both of them backstage after the pre-show in Newark. I was with shout out to my boy Metal Mike from the Halford Band. Both those guys, by the way, thought Metal Mike was the greatest thing ever, and they thought he wrote one of the greatest albums with Sebastian with Angel Down. They were actually talking about that one specifically. Yeah. But what's strange with Queensryche is I feel like this album with Todd Latour, I think is probably their best. I think it's the one that sounds closest to the old school kind of metal throwback. But when they played live with Priest, I think they only played one track from the new album live, and all the rest was all the old school stuff. So even a band like that is, some could argue, are putting out pretty good new music with the new singer. Still, when it goes to live right now, they're not playing the new stuff. Although I think they're on their own tour now, right? And I don't know. My guess is they're probably playing more of the new stuff when they're out on their own.
Yeah,
a lot more.
Or are they? Okay,
yeah, at least
I haven't seen them, but
at least have to set it up with Todd. Yeah. When you open for Priest, you're definitely in front of a nostalgic crowd. So you really, and you only have 45 minutes or whatever. So you have to get in the hits. And if you're lucky to be able to sneak a couple new songs in, I talked about that with Kip Winger on my podcast. And I said, the new album is just crushing. I mean, I think it's their best album ever. I go, I'd love you to play the whole album. And they were opening for Steel Panther. And Kip's like, yeah, maybe we'll get one in on that tour. But, when we go out and headline, hopefully, we could do 4 or 5.
Well, you're going back to the parallels of like a Skid Row, right? I think of a band like Alice in Chains, right? Which you could say falls into the same category. You have 3/5 of the original members. And truthfully, Jerry Cantrell is Alice in Chains. Yeah. You even listen to his solo songs. I mean, I saw him up at the Wellmont back a couple months ago. It's a hard line, even between his solo material and the Alice in Chains stuff, because it all sounds like him. That's the bottom line. But I think it's funny, like when you think about a guy like, they bring in the new Lane Staley, and even though he's been with the band for a long time, boy, he doesn't look like Lane Staley, right? So if you're expecting to go see another blonde-haired guy, and you say Bill up there, and he's this skinny black guy with the giant afro, you're like, what the hell is this, man? Who the hell is this guy?
Hey, I got another question. So, well, first of all, I was going to ask about Pantera, because I don't even know who the other guys are. I obviously know it's Zakk Wylde, but if that group went into the studio and wanted to record a new Pantera album, what would be wrong with that? Arguably speaking. I know, Vertomatic, you have an opinion, but
well, it's Charlie Benante and Zakk, and they're boys. Them and Dime and Vinny, they're brothers. I have no problem with those two doing it. And Rex Brown's, the bass player. So it's half Pantera. Like I said a few minutes ago, that's a line that I don't know if people are ready to cross. If they create, because it's like, I hate to jump around, but you can't have Van Halen without Eddie and Alex. You can't have Pantera without Dime and Vinny. And call it Pantera.
At least in the Judas Priest camp, right? You have Glenn Tipton is still helping with the songwriting, because you can make that argument is, well, he's not even involved in the songwriting, but he is. It wouldn't be the same with the Pantera camp, right?
Well, you just opened up a huge can of worms, and that's a discussion that we're going to have to really take a deep dive in. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Metal Mark Washo is going to take that deep dive, and it surrounds Judas Priest. I'm the Vernomatic. This is Metal Mayhem ROC. We're talking today about the topic, can bands continue as brands? And when do you draw the line with bands not having original members? It's a hot topic. All right, this is a good one. Mark, you have your thoughts on this topic. What do you got, buddy?
Okay, so next question then, in that same vein, what if, Rob Halford one day is not going to be able to tour anymore. He's not going to be able to go on the road. Glenn's having his health issues. But what if we get to a point where we got Richie Faulkner, maybe Andy Sneap stays involved. At some point, Ian Hill can't keep touring. But they go out and find this incredible 25-year-old young Todd LaTorre shredder vocalist who can rip everything Rob ever did. And they come out with this killer album like Screaming for Vengeance or Defenders of the Faith. Would you all, what's wrong with that picture? If that means another Priest album, or call it Priest 2.0 versus no Priest album ever again, ever. And that band keeps going and they go on another tour and we all get to see him again with this new killer album with a new killer singer. What's wrong with that picture?
Don?
Yeah, that's tricky. There's
a lot of ifs there, but if
there is Vernomatic, look, made a good point distinguishing between the bands that are maybe one or two original members who are still out there touring and doing the old songs, and then the bands that are still putting out new material. So that's sort of the thing. I think most people don't care who's in the band when they go see them live. But yeah, I think there is a big difference if the band is still putting out music. And where do you draw the line? So in my mind, as Mark is presenting this Priest thing, I'm going, no. But as you keep talking, I go, all right, yeah, well, what would be wrong with it if it was really great?
It's Richie, and it's still Richie, and it's still Scott Travis. And it's and maybe Glenn's still writing and Rob's still writing. They're just not recording and they're not touring. But you kick it on and it sounds like Killer Priest, and you're like, wow,
Well, Mark, I think you said something in there is what if you slightly renamed it? Now, John and I got to know Rick Ventura quite a bit over the last fall, right? Now, small sampling, but he's got this killer band out there called Riot Act, right? It has the essence of Riot. He plays all the classic Riot songs that he was on. It's got killer musicians from Long Island on there. We just saw the band up at the Chance a couple weeks ago. They were fucking awesome. But what's it called? Riot Act, right? So it's subtle change to the name and the brand, yet you're honoring your origins. To me, that's a way forward.
Yeah, but we go all the way back to the beginning of this whole discussion. Everybody wants the logo. Judas Priest. Not Judas Priest Act. Judas Priest is playing here tonight, and that's what gets people excited, and that's what gets people in the door. Dorks like us know every move, every new member, who's in, who's out, but most people really don't pay that close attention, and I think everybody has their own line. So it's all about the brand. Who has the logo? That's who wins.
Well, here's a question. If you're talking about that, metal nerds like us, this is the comparison. You could get by with it with bands like Foreigner, where there's no originals, because the soccer mom and the lacrosse dads are going to it. But a Judas Priest, you can't get by with that. You can't have replacements because Judas Priest's crowd are more knowledgeable and metalheads are more territorial. Yeah. I wouldn't go see some band playing Judas Priest. It's not Judas Priest.
But Vernomatic, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but here's the thing, though. You go to a pre-show, and as many people are diehards and love Sinner, there's still half the place gets up and starts jumping and cheering when Another Thing Coming comes on. And going back to Pantera, if they said Pantera 2.0 or Pantera Light or what tribute would, to that point, would that scare half the people off? Going, what is this? What's Pantera tribute? Like, I thought this was Pantera. Like, is there that audience that doesn't know? That just, oh, let's go. Wow, Pantera's coming. Cool.
Pantera heads, they know that it's not the original, but they want to go there, and it's a novelty, and it's exciting now because they're finally playing those songs, and they get to see them live. And let's not underestimate the involvement of Zach and Charlie. I'm not saying they get a pass, but they get an acceptance because they were brothers.
Yeah, and you mentioned Foreigner. That there's a new wrinkle to all this, which is Foreigner is going out on their farewell tour. And when you go out on a farewell tour with 0 original members, my question is, who the F is saying farewell?
Wait.
Anybody who's already, the original members have already said farewell decades ago. So can you really have a farewell concert with 0 original members? You know what I mean? You have to bring back all the original guys, at least mix them in with the tour, because otherwise it's like, Foreigner's like jury duty. Like, everyone eventually gets, the letter in the mail. Okay. I got, what happened? You got jury duty. No, I'm in Foreigner. I don't know how long I'm going to be in, but I got to do my civic duty. And, that's what it's like now in that band. Nobody knows who's in it. But yes, that their crowd, not as, crazy as our crowd is about all that stuff, but who's saying goodbye?
Well, how about Leonard Skinner, right? I mean, Leonard Skinner's in the same camp, right? We just lost the last original member, Gary Rosington. Yeah, Ricky Medlock technically is an original member, but Johnny Van Zant, he's got the family name. He's been there since the Re-Kick in '87, but nobody cares. It's Leonard Skinner, right? You got the flag, the identity, the band's, it doesn't matter. They are truly, in my opinion, the ultimate example of a band that is a brand.
Here's another one. Well, I'm going to use the band Helloween, for example. They're out there touring with 2 singers, which is the original. Actually, he's not even the original, but Michael Kiske and the guy that replaced him. And they're on this tour, and they're doing all the throwback stuff. I think they put out new music with both singers. Sometimes they sing together. Sometimes it's kind of like the 3 Tremors, crazy stuff going on. But I don't know. Like, that's a whole other twist, is bringing all the original guys back. Or again, if Priest ever went on a farewell tour, an actual one, what if they brought KK back and even threw Ripper up there and let Ripper do some songs? And I don't know. I think fans think some of that could be super cool too. I guess there's no rules. there's no like metal, emperor that is, handing down fines or something. I guess the fans are going to speak. That's what it comes, right?
Well, that's the thing. You vote with your wallet, and if you're not going to go, you're not going to go. And that's it. But you talk a band like Helloween. What about a band like Vicious Rumors? Their whole existence has been the revolving door. They've been around 30 plus years, but that's a brand. And Walt, let's go here, man. Trans-Siberian. Well, yeah, I know you're drooling.
Well, no, I think that's one of my prime examples where, Trans-Siberian Orchestra came out of the origins of Sabotage, but I truly look at them, and granted, it's a Christmas rock band, a touring circuit, but they are a brand. They have become so big now, it doesn't matter who's in the band. We know there's metal guys in the band, but you know what? When we're old in our wheelchairs in 20 years, that unit's going to still be going around the country, and there's going to be younger looking Joel Hokestras and Jeff Plates and Chris Caffreys, and you're not going to know and not going to matter because there's going to be a metal looking dude with blonde hair in a tuxedo. That's branding too. Here's one for you. And Don, I want your curiosity. Is Ghost a brand? The band Ghost.
100%. It's.
Thank you. I agree.
The Nameless Ghouls says it all. Papa's going to be the focal point. Tobias is going to do all the press, and whoever else is in the band, that's who's in the band, and nobody knows who they are. So he can pick and choose. It could be a different band every night, as far as anybody else is concerned. So I mean, I love the whole idea of the mystique of it and all that. Like when we all listened to Kiss for the first time, and Kiss, they tried to catch them without their makeup. And that lasted like a week and a half with Tobias because everyone's got a cell phone now.
Yeah.
But I do love that concept so that, he retains creative control over everything that's going on. And if someone leaves the band, they leave the band. He just, puts another mask on somebody else and away they go.
Wasn't Slipknot, in a way, sort of doing that, years ago with the masks? You never really knew who was behind the mask.
Yeah, they up until Paul Gray passed away, I think that had stayed all the original members, and they were pretty. And once Corey really started doing more press out of character, I think people got to know the people behind the masks. But now is a different story. Obviously, we lost Joey Jordison, which another guy. Just I can't believe he's gone. And now you got Max Weinberg's son, behind the drums, and then there's guys in the band you don't even know what they do in the band. There's a guy with a pinhead mask on, and he looks like he's pressing some buttons or something. I don't know what he does. But now he's out. Now the other guy. So now it's really down to, I think it's Corey, Clown, and Mick are the three that are left, and everybody else has been replaced. So if you have the masks, or the face makeup or whatever, or the costumes, just move on.
Mark, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask about Ghost because that's a great example because honestly, I'm highly confused by, I don't even know who's even in that band. I don't know how many singers they've had. I do listen to their music. I think they've only ever had, I thought they had another singer that came at some point. Like they never.
See, you fell for it.
I
Mark.
did.
You fell for the gimmick.
I did.
His character becomes different characters, but the singer stays the same. So it's Papa Emeritus 1, 2, 3, 9, 77. That's what they keep switching up is his identity. And then everybody else changes stuff, but he's the focal point. He's the guy. He's the brainchild, and he's the only voice in Ghost.
See, I never knew that. And actually, I always get confused by that band in the sense that I kind of like it, but I kind of don't want to like it because it sounds like manufactured metal music to me, like catchy tracks. But then I find myself listening to it sometimes, so I don't know what to think of that band. But I was going to ask another question. What about the examples of when the band actually gets better or they become more popular? Obviously the old school examples of that would be Iron Maiden and AC/DC. Most would argue that those replacement singers took those bands to a different place, more so than where they were originally. But even like a more recent band, like an Arch Enemy, where I look at they're probably as popular as that band's probably ever been. Elisa White Gluns is probably maybe more popular or well-known than Angela Gasso ever was. You could argue they're both performance-wise pretty up there, but what about those examples where now the band's even stronger or better? And there's probably more than Arch Enemy out there that's just one at the top of my head. Don, what do you think?
Well, yeah, so if you're going to go back to, Iron Maiden, obviously, that was, if I go back a little bit farther quickly, it's like, when you knew Ace Frehley was out of Kiss, that was unheard of back then. Your bands never lost members. Aerosmith never lost members. Those old bands never switched their core members ever. And so when someone left, it was like the most devastating thing ever. Now it's like, oh, a guy's got some personal problems. He's not going to tour. He's going to take a month off and not go to Europe with the band. And everyone goes, okay, no problem. But Maiden's a good example of that's sort of like when Dickinson came in, and I still am a huge Di'Anno fan. Those first two Maiden albums are still my favorite. But you gotta say they would not be where they are if Di'Anno stayed in the band. And so I think that's a great example where people start to become more open-minded to it. Like, sometimes losing an original member is not so bad because the next guy comes in and takes him to a new level. As much as, I'll listen to Bon Scott, AC/DC 90% of the time. Brian Johnson took him to a whole nother level, and same with Arch Enemy. And there's, for some people, they would say even with Dio coming into Sabbath.
Here's a band, Don. Tell me what you think. Band like Saxon. Now, what is it, down to original is Biff.
Just Biff Byford. He's it. Yep. because Paul Quinn is involved, but he's retired from touring. But I think they fall into the Judas Priest category, right? It's been in the accept category. It's been an evolution of band members changing, but they've never really lost their identity. And there's a million bands I'm looking at a list. Deep Purple, one of my favorites, right? How many guys have come and gone, right? There's still Deep Purple, still got three of the five original, or at least the core members there, but they've had now yet another guitar player change, right?
What about
Saxon? To me, Saxon, Quinny's still going to be in the band and writing and probably recording with them. And Nigel's been in for most of Saxon. There's only a couple albums he wasn't on, I think. Because I know those guys and, I see how they work. Biff is the creative leader of that band. So I think no matter who you slot in there, if Biff's there, and I don't think you could do it without Biff, it's like Motorhead without Lemmy. They are going to retain that original Saxon sound. And I think, they're a great example too of they're still putting out new music and it's quality work. So I accept it, and enjoy all the modern stuff that they've done. I mean, I don't think they put out a bad album in the last decade.
No, not at all. Carpe Diem is fantastic. Here's a couple examples, bands that have always been one-man bands. Megadeth. Now, they're unique because they've had accepted chapters, the Gar and Chris Poland, and then the Rust in Peace. But ever since then, it's always Mustaine. What do you think about that, Don? We don't even think like, oh, there's one original member. Fuck that.
Yeah.
That or Wasp with Blackie.
Yeah. Again, it's the evolution of the band. I agree with Walt on that.
Agree.
If you sort of you accept this next version of the band, and then eventually Megadeth did just really become Dave Mustaine, but he's found a way to surround himself with these amazing musicians. The only one I personally will draw a hard line on is Motorhead without Lemmy. It can't be done. I know Mickey and Phil, I don't think there's any amount of money in the world for those guys to do it without Lemmy. But I'm telling you, you're going to see Soundgarden come back again with a new singer, tour and make new music. You're going to see Linkin Park tour and make new music. There's almost nothing that's off limits at this point. But my draw the line is with Lemmy. If there's a Motorhead without him, I'm going to ignore it like I ignored Steven Tyler on American Idol.
By the way, I have a weird twist to this. And by the way, I agree with you with Motorhead because I'm thinking of the Lemmy figurine that I saw at Record Archive. I'm like, that's just one band. They just can't. Nope, you can't go back out and be Motorhead without him. Of course, I mean. But I had another weird twist to this. Is what about these artists that are in multiple projects? And it used to be taboo. So like Tim Ripper Owens, and I love Tim, and I think he's a great singer. But sometimes the knock on Tim is like the guy's in like 20 different projects all at once, and he's in all these different bands. Sometimes he's a filler, sometimes he's a guest, sometimes he's actually the singer. What about when we go to that extreme? Or like it used to be taboo, like God forbid Bruce Dickinson went out and did a solo album, and Maiden's like, well, screw you, Bruce. Either you're with Maiden or you're out. And now I think it's becoming more acceptable that, hey, artists can go do whatever they want to do as long as they stay to the core. But what about those two extremes, which are kind of a little bit of a takeoff of this topic, I suppose, but related?
Yeah, well, David Ellefson's sort of in that mode right now, too, doing a bunch of different projects. And, kind of see what sticks with people. And then regardless of what he does, he's developed now a catalog outside of Megadeth that he can do, just like Ripper has. Ripper's got his solo stuff. He's got his old band Beyond Fear. He can sing the Priest stuff. Yngwie, Iced Earth. So he, you know what I mean? He could just pick a couple songs from every band he's been in, and he can tour the world for the rest of his life because, and he's got the greatest gig of all. All he does is pack a suitcase with his microphone in it, email the set list to guys in Romania or Bulgaria or South America, and there's a band in every city that learns the 14 songs, and he gets on a plane with no equipment whatsoever. He shows up, they do a sound check, play 4 or 5 songs, and there you go. away, and people know all these songs, all the Priest songs and the Yngwie stuff and all the bands he's been in, and he makes a living. So God bless him.
And Mark, a lot of those bands you're talking about, that's the work of these record labels. Frontier, a lot of those are formulated bands like Michael Sweet, George Lynch. Yes, they've done that.
Yeah, we had Robin McCauley on a couple months ago, and I mean, it's a great album, but the Frontiers Italian guys wrote the album for him in the spirit of classic MSG, and all he had to do was put pen to paper and write the music and sing it. And there's a lot of examples. We had Zach Stevens on. There's a Sabotage-like album he's got with Arch on Angel. Yesterday we had Mark Evans on from Heaven's Edge, same kind of thing. So there is some good stuff there. Definitely some good stuff there, but they do go ahead. And by the way, with Ripper, we had Ripper on our show, John, what was it, back in right around the holidays. And he also admitted, he says, listen, it's got to pay the bills. And he takes along these projects because it gets paid for him. He actually was late to our call. And I think, John, you were dialing his cell phone. And he's like, oh, so fucking sorry, man. I was singing. I had to do a cover of a Merciful Fate song. I was in my home studio. Sorry I'm 5 minutes late.
Yeah, he started soliciting work. He's on the show. He's like, yeah, anyone out there listening, get to my email, get to my website, book studio time. I'll lay tracks on your songs. And he was a cool dude.
By the way, another one in that vein is Stu Block from Iced Earth. You mentioned Iced Earth. I mean, he's in the same boat right now. He's just out there. Look, he's taking on projects and guest performances. And like you said, Metal Wall, he's got to pay the bills. He's not obligated to Iced Earth anymore, obviously. And, but Don, you brought up something that actually even look, I'm a believer in these are brands they can carry on. I'd love to see the 2.0 version of all these things. But you said something to me that actually scares me. And now this is where I draw my little line is you said something about like a Kiss in every city, 50 versions of Kiss. All right. That one scares me. That one, I don't know about that one. Then again, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I can see it, right? Sadly, but then again, maybe strangely, if I end up in freaking Chicago or wherever one day and I'm like, oh shit, Kiss is playing, I'll go see the Chicago Kiss. I don't know. That's getting crazy though, right? If we go there, but I can see it happen. If anybody could do it, it'd be them, I suppose, right?
Well, I think I know what's going to happen with Kiss. I'm predicting it. I think they're going to retire, and then they're going to reintroduce their back history. So I bet you're going to see like a Love Gun tour, and they're going to go out and they're going to play theaters, and they're going to rebuild the exact stage, same setting that they had in 77. And they're going to get the perfect replica of the band, and they're going to advertise it, and they're going to sell 1 million freaking tickets.
What do you mean? Like, this fall, come see Kiss do the Rock and Roll Over, recreate Rock and Roll Over with
the legacy of Kiss. And, featuring the replication of the Love Gun US 77 tour.
I mean, Don, would you go? Would you go if it was Kiss sponsored, like everything? Say it's $50 a ticket, and your buddies go or whatever.
Well, Don gets guest listed. Let's be honest. Otherwise, Don's not going.
An opening slot to do comedy.
Well, they had a painter on the road. They could take a comedian out. I've done that for a ton of bands. I'm actually opening for Metal Church this weekend, but
nice.
There's some phenomenal Kiss tribute bands out there, and I've gone to a bunch of them.
There are.
And I paid. So would I see the Kiss endorsed one? And Walt, I love that idea, and I've never heard anybody bring that up. But okay, all new members of Kiss, and they're recreating different eras of the band. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think you should copyright it immediately before Gene catches wind of this. And I will say I would go. I would definitely go. If you're recreating that entire vibe with a great band, because I think we've all seen some great Kiss tributes. So if this one's band sanctioned, I think I would go.
I think that's the difference if it's sanctioned, but I'm not a personal fan of tribute bands. I think I'm just not into it because unless it's sanctioned by the band, I don't want to know anything about it.
But aren't there like 4 Phantom of the Operas out there at any given time in 4 different cities, and it's pretty much the same
TSOs,
show?
East Coast and West Coast. What's the difference?
Yeah. Maybe there'll be 4 mini kisses. 4 mini kisses.
They should let Mini Kiss fly the flag for let them do that.
I think so.
Well, we talked about this the other day, Walt, about how Mark mentioned Phantom of the Opera, but that's a Broadway show. That they have understudies, they have revolving. That's something entirely different. But we got about 5 minutes left. Don, when you go meet up with Kurt and the Metal Church guys, I remember back when I was a kid and I got the first album, and the inner album they had the Metal Church neck brace. They got to bring that shit back. And you talk about Ace was out of the band, was going to see the Creatures of the Night tour, and we didn't know Ace was out of the band until the fucking band came out, because back then you didn't know. So, but Walt, I'm going to let you reel this in. There's a couple other notes you probably have.
So yeah, here's one, and I don't like to go negative, but let's get let's be comfortable being uncomfortable right now. In the beginning of the show, Don, we said, hey, you know what? As long as the logo's there, if there's one original guy, it's good. But where does it go where you're like cringe? Like my daughter says, cringe. And I think of, and I love them, but I think of a band like Yes. Yes is down to Steve Howe. Billy Sherwood's in there, but he's playing the role of Chris Squire. But Billy Sherwood was guitarist in them 20 years ago. And Alan White has passed away. Like, there's a line where things get too diluted. And I use a band like that, where it's almost like I said, it's like, where does it say, oh, come on, guys, enough of this? Like, I don't know, Don, a band like Vixen, right? Yeah, you take 3 of the ladies out and you replace them with 3 equally pretty ladies, which is fine, but is it still the same product?
Again, if you bring in people who can capture the spirit of the band, Lorraine Lewis coming in to take over for Janet, I thought she was a perfect replacement for the band. But yes, now they're down to just Roxy as the original member. Kurt Vanderhoof. I'm gonna open for a band that only has one original member. But I give my blessing to those guys to carry on, because I think Mark fits the spirit of what they've done over the years. And obviously what happened with Mike Howe was completely tragic. And I'm glad they're moving on. For me, I think it's 0 original members. There's got to be a line somewhere, right? It's 0. The Foreigner thing, it's like it's really ridiculous. But I had a girlfriend ask me to take her to see Foreigner, and there was no original members, but the place is packed, and everyone's singing every song, and everyone's getting so much joy out of it. I'm like, all right, it bums me out, but it's bringing joy to people. And, with all the talk about Pantera, again, they're the hot topic now, and people saying, oh, they shouldn't have called it Pantera. They shouldn't have used the logo, all this stuff. But every day you see in these clips online from people all over the world loving this music, people who are 20, 30 years younger than we are, we're old fucks. So, these young people never got to see Pantera, and this is as close as it gets. They're getting half with great replacements, and they're bringing a lot of joy to people. So, I don't like to be the Grinch, but I think I'm okay saying 0 original members is not acceptable in my world.
I'll subscribe to that, and we are crusty, and we are get off my lawn, guys. But rightfully so. We're all card-carrying members of this fucking fraternity. Don, before we go, new show, That Rocks. You got the band back together. How's that going? I've caught a few of them. It's a little long to tell you the truth. Our attention span.
Wait, sorry. Before we go to Don's plugs, we do have a question, though, that needs to be asked. Can that metal show go on without one of the 3 original members? Like, if there's no Don Jamieson, is there that metal show with just Jim and Eddie? That we need to know this.
The producer has owned the name and the logo and has shopped it around since we went off the air, probably almost 8 years ago now. And he has not had any success in getting it on anywhere in any sort of combination. So I guess it can't go on even with the original members. So I'm not really worried for my spot in that show. If it ever did come back, obviously, I hope I'd be a part of it. And but no, loving what's going on with that Rocks. You know, we you know, like a band, we were tired of waiting around to see, hey, what's going to happen? Are we going to be able to use the brand, which, you know, we haven't been able to do. And so, yeah, we are starting over with that Rocks. It's a whole new thing. It's a new logo and it's a new concept. Obviously, it's a streaming world now. So, but we're happy to be back together and doing it. And Vern, we got it down to about an hour, under an hour and 10 this week. So don't worry, we're honing it in. We're learning as we're doing it. You know, when you got three guys who all like to talk, it tends to go a little long. But great stuff, and I'll have more news when we do this again the next time about that Rocks and a bunch of other stuff. And but I appreciate you guys having me. If you guys haven't seen that Rocks, every Wednesday on YouTube, check it out.
And what about your brand? You've been touring. You were in Massachusetts last weekend. You running out the door right now. Tonight's Metal Church?
Yeah, well, I'll have Metal Church this weekend up at the Vault in New Bedford, Massachusetts. 2 nights, which I'm super excited about. So Friday and Saturday. And then, you know, my brand is, my brand is me. So it's the original lineup for the last 23 years. No, I'm sure a lot of people wish there was a replacement for me, but if you like what I do, follow me on my social media, Don Jamieson Official on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter at Real Don Jamieson. You can see me opening for bands, doing a lot of my metal humor. You could see me in the comedy clubs doing my regular comedy club act, and everything. I'm like Ripper. Yeah, you got a backyard, you got a 6-pack and a hand job. I'll come play your birthday.
All right, get out of here. You got to go to work. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
I'll see you guys later.
Thanks, man.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.